Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Latam Monitor Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Fernando Prats, Program Director at London Politica's Latin America program, and I'm joined by my co-host, Cruz Infante, who is an affiliate to London Politica's Latin America program and a country manager to Chile and Peru at Cefeiras Group. So today we are very excited to have Andrés Rugeles with us, and distinguished expert in international politics, Latin American affairs, sustainable development, and many other things. So welcome, Andrés.
Thank you very much, Fernando.
Welcome.
Okay, so let me introduce you first by telling our audience that Andrés is a political scientist with a bachelor's degree from Los Andes University in Colombia, and who holds a master's degree in international political economy at the London School of Economics and Political Science. He has also completed advanced studies in negotiation and leadership at Harvard University and was a visiting fellow at the University of Oxford in 2023. With a career spanning over 25 years, Andrés has held prominent roles across government, multilateral banking, academia, and the private sector. He has served as Colombia's ambassador to the UN, as a chief of staff at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Colombia, as well as a chief of staff at the Secretary General of the Andean Community, and as the Transparency Secretary to the Colombian Presidency and a COPS representative in Argentina. So very impressive resume, Andrés. We're very pleased to have you with
Wow.
us.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fernando, Carlos, for this invitation. And it is a pleasure to share with you ideas and reflections about the two recent books that I published in this year.
Yes. I was about to say that. I mean, besides this impressive resume, you have been working on some books throughout the last time. And earlier this year, you just published Latin America in the Vision of Its Leaders, which featured interviews with over 30 prominent leaders in the region, including former presidents, and insights from 100 high-profile figures throughout the region. So I could love if you could share to us and to our audience some of the insights and what stood out the most to you during this process, as well as what were the key takeaways that you had in this process of working in the book.
Well, that's a very good question. And let me start pointing out that this book works around an ever-present question, which is, where is Latin America heading? So the result of that question was a reflection, a deep reflection about Latin America, which is in 30 interviews with leaders in the region, in 55 articles that were written especially for this volume by leading authorities, experts, and academics, and the 1992 pages written at the Oxford University and the London School of Economics. So in total, 106 personalities participated in this project, and those personalities and those whose contributions reflect intellectual depth, geographical diversity, political and ideological plurality, gender balance, and generational equilibrium. So those were the main principles that applied for the selection of the 100 personalities that participated in the project. Well, the book revolves around 6 thematic axes, which are poverty and inequality, growth and productivity, environment, democracy, regional integration, and international affairs or international insertion of Latin America, which in my opinion are the main challenges of Latin America towards the future. Those axes, the 6 thematic axes, in my opinion, reveal pending tasks, aspirations, and key fronts in the work for the future of the region. And also, they reflect a potential risk in our journey through history. And in the book, I mentioned that like the cogs in a wheel, these are elements that drive each other, and we need to understand them in their uniqueness in order to be successful in the world, and we need to address them in three dimensions: at the national, at the regional, and the global. And let me tell you here an anecdote. When I interviewed President Lagos, one of the things that he highlighted immediately about the book and about the project, it was the combination about the six axes and the three dimensions, which give the book a uniqueness approach to Latin America. And let me mention here that this work is more than the result of an academic exercise. It is intended to be a collective contribution, a kind of a sort of global and regional public good to think Latin America in the present and in the future, and mainly to find answers to its main challenges. And the question, and this is very important, the questions about future, about the successful participation of countries and regions in the world economy, is also being asked in other parts of the planet, and especially in the global south. And here, a very clear example is India. India is directing its effort towards building what they call their own way, the Indian way, that is prioritizing intensive investment in human capital, the provision of high-skilled services and innovation in new manufactured products. So in other words, India is basing its future on two pillars: knowledge and creativity. And that's something that the global south should look and should follow. When we look at the numbers, the projections of Goldman Sachs, the projections point to India being the second largest economy after China by 2075. It means that the US will be in a third place. So we'll have China, India, and the US. And something that I mentioned in the book is that Latin America must also pave its own path, and its own path is the Latin American way. Now, let me mention some of the highlights that are included in the book. And if we wanted to say in a kind of in a Twitter way, I will convey here 6 messages in order to close this first question. And the 6 messages are: the first one is that Latin America needs to have a new social contract based on sectoral pacts and an unrestricted adherence to democracy. The second message is that we need to move from ideology to action in order to build a new development model in the region that prioritizes productive transformation under what I call the formula GDI: green, digital, and inclusive. The third message is that we need to achieve more climate action and stop the rhetoric of the cops. The fourth one is that definitely the region is facing a democratic disenchantment that flirts with a dangerous what if, which opens the door to what I call in the book the autocrats 2.0. The fifth message is that we need to deepen the possible path for regional integration. And we need to do it with pragmatism and without ideologies. And the sixth big message in the book is that we need to face the challenge of building a Latin American way of international insertion that privileges renew multilateralism and also, and at the same time, strengthen our voice with key actors in the international scenario, such as the United States, China, the European Union, India, and the Global South. And it is possible to have, in a simultaneous way, that relationship and to get from each of these actors the best trade, investments, knowledge, technology. And that's the big challenge that Latin America has towards the future.
Wow. That was a very, very condensed summary. Super interesting. I am also guessing that those interviews or conversations, rather, were super exciting, right? Is
Definitely,
I have
definitely. And
so I have two questions there.
yeah,
Was that book that inspired you to publish your second book
yeah,
that you launched actually last week or in
yeah.
the last
Last
two
week,
weeks?
yeah, last week we launched the second book. Yeah,
Latin America in the world. That's a name, right?
yeah, that's correct.
And what were the most striking findings you had in this second research? And
All
please
right,
delight us.
yeah, let me start mentioning that this new book is an integral part of an academic project that I started in 2023 in Oxford University, visiting fellow, and also at the London School of Economics as part or as member of the advisory board of the Global South unit. So in 2023, I started this academic project, which led to the publication in June 2024, or the first book, Latin America, the Vision of Its Leaders, that, by the way, is practically sold out in its first edition of 2,200 copies, just in 5 months. Then,
Congratulations.
yeah, that's very
That's
good
a
news. That's
milestone.
very good news.
Yeah.
And let me give you an important detail here. All the royalties of the first book were donated to a foundation that is called Colombianitos. It's a foundation that is working for girls and boys in a vulnerable situation in the country. And I did it because I
Fantastic.
believe, I truly believe that there are two mechanisms in order to achieve social inclusion: education and sports. And that foundation is working on those two pillars with those girls and boys in Colombia. So that's a good news. And
Fantastic.
I launched the book in Colombia, this first book in Bogota, and subsequently, and I undertook the task of presenting it in a very plural and inclusive dialogue exercise with leaders of the region and also with key institutions in Latin America. So the exercise was to present it in the main cities of Colombia. So I presented in Bogota and also in the 5 main capitals of the different departments in Colombia, like Medellin, Cali, Barranquilla, Bucaramanga. And also, I presented the book at an international level in Buenos Aires, Santiago de Chile, Lima, Panama, Washington, Madrid, London, and Oxford. So today, I have visited more than 8 countries, 13 cities. We have done more than 20 presentations about the book. And this is a very interesting fact. I traveled for the presentation of the first book more than 45,000 kilometers by plane in this journey. Literally, this number is the equivalent of going around the world. So we already have done 1 round around the world to present the book. So what I say
Great.
is that the task is done The mission is progress, is what I say when we present the book. Now let me move to the second book. So the bet was for a second book that was mainly focused on international issues. And one of the main here messages is that Latin America must avoid what the experts are saying, the loneliness. Latin America in the world is becoming alone and an actor that is not taking place in the main discussions. And that takes us to a point in which we need to build renewed leaderships in the region and find our own path. So with this objective in mind, with the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Colombia, Guillermo Fernando de Soto, we decided to publish this second book, Latin America in the World, 21 Ideas for Reflection and Action, which I think the book reflects intellectual rigor and a conviction that Latin America needs to gain again a place in the world. Something that when you look at the book starts with a thought, with a reflection of the former president of IDB, Enrique Iglesias. And Enrique Iglesias is saying that in today's world, it's better to sail in convoy than alone. And I think this is the spirit of the book, that we need to be together in the region in order to navigate, in order to sail now in the current challenges of the world. So we make the call to work together despite all the adversities and challenges Latin America must face in this world that is increasingly complex, fragmented, and unstable. And this is something that we elaborate in the book. And this book has 5 thematic axes. The first one is an analysis of the international order and the global south. The second one is democracy. The third one, productive transformation and regional integration. The fourth one is the central actors of the international scenario. And the fifth one is the renewed multilateralism and the role of the United Nations. So those 5 axes, thematic axes, in a certain way reflect our experiences and our thoughts in different scenarios at UN, also in Oxford, LSE, and also the scenario of the Colombian Council of Foreign Affairs. At the end of the day, let me tell you that the message here is that, as I mentioned before, that the region is progressively losing relevance and presence at the international level. We are left out of the most important conversations in the United Nations and the forums that are shaping the world of tomorrow around key issues like new technologies, growth, education, productive transformation. So I am more here here you can take the pessimist side or the optimist side. I remain on the side of the optimist. And I think that at this moment, the region has all the potential to growth and to have a great contribution to the world. When you look the natural resources that the region has, all the energy, and how we can contribute to the energy transition in the world is amazing. So we need to take advantage of that. But Latin America must act with maturity and determination. And Latin America must act with one voice and in a coordinated manner at the international level. So at the end of the day, in the book, what we are saying is that we need a renewed leadership, long-term visions, and consensus. And all of that should have some three guiding principles. The first one is what we call the respice omnia, which means look at the universe, look at the whole. In other words, we need to have a global and very wide perspective of the world. The second principle is based on the importance of regional integration as a political imperative. And the third one is that we need a renewed multilateralism and to adhere to international law for the construction of a new, more equitable, rule-based global order. So this is the main messages of the second book, which I invite also to read it. And you will see that when you read it, you find out that there are concepts like responsibility, commitment, and solidarity are setting the tone at this moment in this discussion in Latin America.
Well, Andres, this is super exciting. This work you've done throughout the last 2 years is amazing and truly inspiring for everyone in the region. I mean, I think it is quite clear that your vision, your books, and your work is distinctively marked by a vision of future. So I think that there's probably no better person to ask. How do you see Latin America evolving towards 2030? I would like you to explore a little bit of this, thinking about the balancing of the biggest risks, the opportunities, which of course you have mentioned, but I would like you to share with us and with our audience, of course, some of these ideas to bring a closure to this magnificent episode.
Yeah. One of the characteristics of the two books is that we need to think about long term, and here this view of the long term. Let me tell you that I think the 2030, in my opinion, is too short. We need to look 2050 or even 50, 80 years ahead of time. So when you look at the 2050, and this is based on a paper that I wrote that is called the mega trends that are challenging Latin America, identify at least 5 mega trends that we should pay attention because they are going to have a big impact in the region. And those mega trends are mainly climate change and energy. And I define it that this is a systematic challenge that will define the existence of humanity. And it is around some tensions about energy consumptions, temperature increase, natural disasters. And here, the big news and the positive news is that Latin America is part of the solution to this global mega trend. The second mega trend that I identified is the new technological developments. So artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, new technologies that will mark the fourth industrial revolution. And they are transforming societies in a positive, but also in a negative way. So Latin America, the challenge here is how Latin America will respond to these new technological developments. And let me tell you, the challenge is huge. And Latin America, in a positive way, should prepare for this fourth industrial revolution. We cannot miss the train. When we look at 2060, the artificial intelligence will be present in all spheres of our lives and will undertake tasks that were previously considered only within the scope of human beings. So we need to prepare ourselves and pay attention that a fact that is very important. Whoever controls the artificial intelligence, the new technologies, the hyperconnectivity will lead the world and will have an important advantage in global geopolitics. So this is what, at this moment, the new geopolitics is about. It's about the competition, about the new technological developments. The third mega trend that identified that will have an impact in the region is about population and on all the demographic trends that have two axes, growth and also aging. When you go to 2064, to be precise, the global population will reach its peak at around 9.6 billion people. And when you go to 2100, population will decline around to 8.7 billion. In the case of Latin America, what you see is that the region will face a significant challenge regarding the aging of its population. So it will have a big impact on the fiscal matters, and also on how you have all this population involved in the productive sectors. So that's a big challenge for the region. A third mega trend to mention is inequality and emerging middle classes. And the trend is that inequality between nations is reducing. However, inequality within countries is increasing. So that's something to tackle. And the good news is that we will have a stronger middle classes in the world. And there are some projections of Centennial Group, which are indicated that 80% of the world population will be middle class and high income by 2060. Most of these middle classes will be in the Asian countries, which, by the way, by 2050, 55% of the global GDP will be concentrated in Asia. So in the book, I mentioned that we will have a transition, and again, Asia, the Pacific, will become the engine of growth of the world. And let me mention the last megatrend here, which is the urban development. We will have more urban countries. By the way, Latin America at this moment is the most urbanized region in the world, but new regions will have more bigger cities. That will have an impact mainly on the environmental side and also on social inequality. So the final reflection here on the mega trends is that we need to think and rethink in the region the strategy of growth and development with a long-term vision. When you look at the short term, and here I'm going to move more on the side of the business. When you look at the short term, what you find is that Latin America, the economic growth of Latin America for this year is just 1.9. Next year will be 2.5 around. For some people, this is good news. In my perspective, those are not good news. We need to grow at higher rates. We need to grow at least more than 5% of economic growth for several decades in order to solve the problems mainly of poverty and inequality. But that will require to have a new ways of economic transformation of Latin America. Here, let me tell you that the World Bank is saying that the region is in a state of robust mediocrity. And I agree with that, since we need to grow more. But let me move forward, and the diagnostics are clear. But what we need to do is a big question. And again, in the books, I propose the formula of the green, digital, inclusive formula. And as a new way of growth of Latin America. And this is, in order to achieve this new economic growth or higher economic growth, we need at least to work around 8 points, which are boosting public and private investment. We need to train our human capital according to the needs of the 21st century. We need to accelerate the structural changes and also to adjust and to be in line with the environment, technology, and digital transformation. We need to double the construction of physical and digital infrastructure, which is a big gap now in Latin America. And here, as a parenthesis, let me tell you that it's more expensive to transport a good from Bogota to Buenaventura, which is our port in the Pacific, than from Buenaventura to China, which doesn't make any sense. No? The fifth element here is we need to advance in reforms in order to create more jobs and to have more social inclusion. The sixth one is that we need to strengthen competition in domestic markets to promote innovation, creation, and transfer of technology. A seventh element here is that we need to provide greater access to financing for business. And the eighth and the last one is we need to make a push for regional and global trade integration. All these elements obviously requires an active participation of the private sector, an active participation of the state. And definitely there are key areas or winning areas in which I think we have the potential to win in this world economy. And those areas are already identified by the ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America. And those areas are mainly energy transition, electromobility, circular economy, bioeconomy, health, manufacturing industry, digital transformation, care economy, tourism, and small and medium enterprises. So everything is now on the table. What we need now is to promote the right investments in the region, the generation of good quality employment in Latin America in order to advance in the economic growth of Latin America. So at the end of the day, and let me conclude here, we need to have a new development model to promote growth, and also all of this should be accompanied by deepening the regional integration of Latin America and to have more linkages in the productive sectors within countries and among countries in Latin America.
Well, it's quite tough to speak after such an inspiring remarks. I mean, this is certainly one of the most
It truly is.
thought-provoking episodes and inspiring, and with a very clear future vision. So thank you very much, Andres, for your time here.
No,
This has been a very, very exciting and inspiring conversation.
no, it's a pleasure to have shared with you those ideas. And let me make a final comment here. Is it always so when you go to this kind of interviews, they ask you about what are the most significant events of 24, what is coming from the next year. This is important, definitely, obviously. And you look at the scenario and you see elections, what is going in Mexico, in the US, in Argentina, in Venezuela, and so on. But I think we need to pay attention in the long term. We need to go beyond and look at the trends, because this is the only way to anticipate what is coming. And when you are in public policy, one of the key issues is to be able to anticipate or to forecast what is coming. So my final comment is here. Let's work on the long term of the region. Latin America is a region of opportunities that can contribute to face the global challenges. And we have all the potential with our human capital, with our natural resources, with our companies, and we can make a contribution in the world. But everything depends on ourselves. It depends on the Latin Americans and only Latin Americans to have this place in the world.
Definitely.
Well, yes, thank you very much, Andres. Again, thank you, Carlos, as usual, for your insights. Thank you, listeners, for being on the other side, listening to this very compelling episode. Please stay updated with the Latam Monitor Podcast. We'll meet again next year with you with a new, renewed and very exciting season to bring you the conversations of the key political, economic, and geopolitical issues going on in the region. So thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye, Andres. Bye, Carlos.
Thank you. It was a great session to close the year, and I invite you to read both books, Latin America, The Vision of Its Leaders, and Latin America in the World, 21 Reflections. So I invite you to read them.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Fernando.